This episode of the Quit Your 9 to 5 podcast show is brought to you by the Quit Your 9 to 5 Academy. Are you a struggling entrepreneur who's still stuck at a day job and want out? If you're ready to ditch the 9 to 5 life for good, to do what you're really passionate about, let us show you how to monetize your passion into a business that keeps you happy and makes you money. Visit quityour9to5academy.com for your free exit plan strategy guide.
Are you ready to quit your 9 to 5 and pursue your passion full time? We'll show you how. Create a business doing what you love. You're listening to the Quit Your 9 to 5 podcast with your hosts, Tamisha and Damian Duncan.
Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with us. Damien was telling me a little bit about your story and all the wonderful things that you did, and he was like, we got to get her on the podcast. So I'm excited to talk to you, and I'm excited for you to share your story with us and tell, all the listeners out there, a little bit about your story and some of the things that you dealt with. So first of all, tell us a little bit about what you do, who you are and what you do.
Who I am.
Yeah, that's a loaded question, right?
Sure, I'll give you a little synopsis of who I am. But my name is Tasha. Most of your community probably doesn't know me yet. So my name is Latasha Kinnard. I'm the CEO of Start Young Financial, and I started my career in corporate America. So I started off working for a Fortune 50 company managing $150 million budgets for some of the biggest brands in the world. So I've been extremely grateful to have a lot of responsibility at a young age. But before I was working in corporate America, I was just a young girl growing up on the south side of Chicago in one of the most economically depressed counties in the United States. Period.
Wow.
So this is the type of neighborhood on the south side of Chicago that they call Chirac today, that when people are born into it, they die out of it. They don't normally leave and go on to do other things. And so I'm incredibly grateful, and I knew from a very young age that I didn't want to be a product of my circumstances, but I wanted to be a creator of my circumstances. And at the age of 5, I determined that education was going to be really important. And at the age of 10, I decided that money was going to be really important. Mm-hmm. And so here I am now, a financial educator. And I work exclusively with the millennial generation to help them achieve financial freedom and take control of their finances.
That is amazing. At the age of 10, you knew you wanted money to be your focus. That's what I'm talking about. You got to start young.
I didn't know I was going to be at this capacity. I just knew that I wanted to learn about it myself. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that I was going to be teaching other people about it.
Yeah.
Too. Well, that says a lot. I mean, for the podcast listeners, that at the age of 10, that you were thinking about, worrying about your finances. There are people who live their whole lives who don't even know how to balance a checkbook. So we definitely want to acknowledge you for that. And, for the listeners on the podcast, I mean, talk about motivation. I mean, just took it to another level, so that again, we want to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you.
So you talked about a little bit about what you did for your 9 to 5. So how long were you working your 9 to 5, and when did you decide in your mind to say, okay, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I want to pursue my own passion?
Yeah, so I had been working in corporate America for exactly 2 years when I decided that it was no longer for me. So I started off and everything was great. I had a lot of responsibility. I was learning so much, and I absolutely loved it. I loved going into work every day. And then there came a point where I didn't love it anymore. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I would be sitting at my desk and the sun is shining and it's bright, and I'm just inside typing away at the keyboard, doing work that wasn't for me. And so every day I realized that I was giving away the best hours of my life for a company that did not care about me. And I don't mean it in a malicious way, but it's just the nature of companies.
Absolutely.
A company does not care about you. And I was, making them millions of dollars a day, right? Getting pennies on the dollar, not utilizing the full breadth of what I had in me to create. And there was a quote from Steve Jobs, and he said, if you look in the mirror too many days and you're not happy, something in your life needs to change.
Right.
And so I started praying about it. I was like, I want to do something that's meaningful and impactful. You only get one life. This is not Super Mario Brothers. When you die, you do not have another opportunity to come back in the same life and do it again a different way.
Right.
There are no do-overs. And so I said, this is my one life. And I want to live it doing what I want to do and not being fearful, because the only thing that I would be afraid of is living an unfulfilled life. And so I prayed about it. And one day I just received crazy spiritual clarity, and I put in my 2-week notice that next day. And the crazy part about it was that, I went into the HR office, and I wasn't ready to quit just yet, but I wanted to learn more about the process. Before I left out of there, I was like, this is my 2 weeks notice. Before I left. And they were so taken aback. My HR manager was just like, come again? She was like, Tasha, I think you're making a big mistake. Go back to your desk. I promise I won't tell anybody.
Wow.
Wow.
It's like, what do you mean? I just quit.
That's crazy.
And
She was just like, think about it.
And it just goes to show you, the impact when you say, I'm done, I quit, or I resign. The impact that it has on the people that work there is like they want you to stay in this economical slavery penitentiary, whatever you want to call it, because they don't have the courage to do what you just did.
Right.
And, initially, you went in there, just trying to understand what would be, the process of doing it, and you actually did it. And I'm telling you, to all of the listeners, every time I ask this question about, when you quit your job, I see this smile that comes to everyone's face. I mean, and if you would see Latasha's face right now when we asked her that question, it was just like a sense of relief, a sense of happiness and things like that. So, coming from, a finance background, such as myself, I sat on many trading desks, and, we've transferred billions of dollars every day. So could you talk a little bit about how that made you feel, like all of this money going through you're making people richer every day, and, how did that make you feel,
You know what, Damien? I had a $150 million checkbook, right? Just for me to write orders and, get the companies that I was working for a good return on their investment. And I was just like, the things that I had a lot of money that I was responsible for, but the impact that money was having was just, it was money to create more money, to create more product, to create more money, but it really wasn't having an impact on the people who looked like me or the people that I cared about. Mm-hmm. And that was really what I found to be the most problematic component of it all, was that I'm dealing with, $100 million every year, and the majority of it, the vast majority of it, is never going into the hands of people who look like me, including me. Right. It's not even coming to me. Mm-hmm. Right? I get pennies on the dollar, working morning until night, giving away the best hours of my life. One of the things that I teach my clients is when you go to work, you're giving somebody your life. And so you should value that, right?
Yes.
So you get, whether you give them 8 hours or 10 hours or however much you work, and they give you a paycheck in exchange, you're trading hours of your life for that money. And I really realized that. And let me tell you, I work a lot now. I work more hours than I ever worked in corporate America. But it is all within the context of Tasha's life and what Tasha wants to create. And that makes all the difference to me.
It sure does. I'm so glad that you said that, as far as the time and how you're trading your life for, this time in exchange. And most of us out there don't feel like we're being paid what we feel we're worth. And, we just kind of take the job because it's offered to us, but we're still struggling. So you're giving up your life and trading your time with things that you could be doing, for yourself to get a paycheck that probably doesn't even pay all the bills. I know for us, my paycheck, it was nice, but it definitely wasn't paying all the bills. So and that was kind of like a realization for me, because I remember telling Damien when I wanted to quit, and I was like, I held on for so long because I'm like, okay, well, we need money, and my check was the check that was taking care of us, and I was like, we need money and we got to pay the bills. And I finally thought about it, and I was like, but the reality is this check still ain't paying the bills. We still robbing Peter to pay Paul at the end of the day. So what's the point? But when you're working that time for yourself, for Tasha, for Tamisha, for Damien, and for you listeners out there, it makes that much more of a difference. Yeah, I work at 3 o'clock in the morning. I work 20-hour days, but the reward is something that's coming back to me. So that is amazing that you mentioned that.
And also, you know, just to reiterate back on the time, you know, to the listeners, Latasha just said she's, you know, working more hours in her business. Well, one, she has the freedom to do that. One is it's affecting her bottom line of her business and her life. And also it's just another reminder, when you become an entrepreneur, you have to put in the time. But it's going to be all worth it because you're holding yourself accountable and honoring your word to what you say what you want your business to look like. So I wanted to acknowledge you on that. Also, just to go back into a tangent now, there's some listeners on here who put constraints in front of them. They make them circumstances bigger than them. But remember what Latasha said earlier in the podcast, that she came from Southside Chicago. We know how the circumstances are there. And she did not allow that to stifle her from, you know, pursuing her passions. So this, you know, that's just a little bit more motivation for you. You know, your circumstances might not even be that severe, you know, but there's no excuses. You just got to get it done, honor your word, become an entrepreneur, quit that job, and make big things happen and have that and restore freedom in your life.
Yeah. So Tasha, tell us a little bit about now. I know you said when you went in, you were kind of talking to your HR director, and you were kind of trying to figure out the process, and decided at that point that you were putting in your 2-week notice. And I know you also mentioned the fact that the day before that or the night before that, you got, you know, a big spiritual push to help you to make this decision. Did you know what you wanted to do, or did you quit cold turkey?
Both. I definitely quit cold turkey. But I had been doing this, what I'm doing now, I had been doing it like part-time, you know, and I put that in air quotes because, you know, when you work for a Fortune 50 company, you don't have any other time.
Right.
And so that was just a lie that I was telling myself. I would tell myself, you know, whenever I get some extra time, I'll work on my side business, when my side business was really the thing that I was most passionate about. And 6 months had went past and my business went absolutely nowhere. I probably worked with one client. I did a lot of thought work around what I wanted to do, but I took no action because I was exhausted by the work that I was doing every single day for the job that I was going to. And when I tell you sometimes I'll be at church and I will be like, did I forget to do anything at work? Maybe I should go in today. I mean, that is how engulfed I was in a job that didn't care anything about me. And so I had an idea that I wanted to work with young adults in finance, because while I was in corporate America, there are a lot of people who are, first generation college, first generation corporate, but even the young adults who were not, none of them knew how to manage money. And this was something that I had been doing since I was 10 years old. When I tell you I had been focused on money since I was 10, I had a notebook. I didn't know anything about a bank ledger, but I had a notebook, and I would literally write down all the money that came into me and all the money that went out.
Wow.
So if I found 25 cents, which I would actually go around and look for change, if I would find 25 cents, I would write it in my notebook. If I went to buy a 25-cent bag of chips, I would go write it down in my notebook.
Wow.
So I was meticulous about my money. And so by the time I was, in a corporate setting, I realized that nobody else really was, and that they needed some support. And so I created a company to do that. Now, when I wanted to leave my job, it was really, when I was praying for spiritual revelation, I was actually praying for the next step in my current job. I was not at any point thinking that I was going to leave my job. I had a friend who left corporate America a month before me. I looked her dead in her face and I said, I could never do that.
Wow.
That's exactly what I told her. I said, I could never do that without having something lined up. You are crazy. But, I'm so proud of you, girl. Get it. I love it. A month later, I was putting in my 2 weeks notice with nothing lined up. And, even though it was a spiritual revelation, I will not pretend like it felt good. I was like, I'm sorry, what? Come again? Is there going to be something else lined up for me? Like, what is happening? But for me, I thought this to myself. I like to be pretty much, it's black or white. And so I said, either you believe God or you don't. You can't pretend like you do when it suits you. So I was like, if I'm a bet one way, I'm a bet on God. And I did it. and I don't regret it. You know, it requires me to be my highest version of myself every single day. And when I'm not, there's going to be an impact, and I'm going to have to live with the consequences. And I like being in an environment where I am responsible for what happens in my life. What other way should it be?
Exactly.
And also, you know, like, well, first and foremost, shout out to the cold turkey quitters, because I'm a cold turkey quitter. Did it in 2008, February 28th.
I like that term.
All right, the cold turkeys. But anyway, you know, you know, entrepreneurship definitely restores back your accountability to yourself. And that's what I want the listeners to understand, that yes, it's hard work. Yes, there are going to be times where you're going to be scared out of you know what. But at the end of the day, like you said, you trust in God and you trust it in yourself. And, you know, again, you know, you're going to have obstacles. You just have to make those circumstances smaller than you, period.
You also have to change your perspective. So I got really real with myself, and I was like, what if I can't pay my bills? You know, what if I lose my car? Like, you have to really be real with yourself. And at the end of the day, I realized it's all just material stuff.
Right.
Where me and my well-being, there is nothing that I would value over that. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. And I went to Barbados, and I realized that there were so many people in Barbados who did not have traditional jobs, but they were laid up on the beach, happier than half the people in America.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
You know? So get your priorities in order.
Yeah, you're right. And when you don't see it when you're in the thick of it, you know, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And like another thing that he and I were talking about not too long ago, I used to worry so much when I was working and had a consistent check about how are we going to do this? What are we going to do about that? I was just like the worry queen. And, you know, being an entrepreneur full time and now giving up that consistency, you know, you don't know when you're going to get money. There's nothing, you know, laid in stone. You could have clients lined up and then they can be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to, you know, move forward or whatever the case may be. And that money you were depending on is gone now. And so now you got to figure out another way to create more money. But the thing that I've realized, like stepping back, I've realized like I was worried about so many things and I can't possibly confirm when my next check is going to come. You know, I might have things lined up, but nothing is confirmed, if you will. But I'm not worried about it because I know I have the power, as you mentioned earlier, I have control over me. I have the power to create possibilities in my life. And if I want something that bad, you know, being home and being an entrepreneur, like you said it perfectly. It forces you to be the highest level of yourself, the highest power of yourself. You know, you've got to up-level yourself. You've got to take yourself seriously, and you've got to, you know, you've got to stand behind what you believe in. If you want it to happen, it will. If you don't, it won't. And I've learned that even with our experiences, and you can probably attest to this as well. Once you've taken back that power of your life, you know, money just kind of shows up. It appears. Or the things that you need to happen just kind of show up and appears. And it's just like, wow. You know, once you start to really take yourself and your business seriously.
And, you know, also, too, I just wanted to go back into one of my tangents. You know how I do,
yes,
listeners. And, you know, you said something earlier. You know, we're not demonizing corporate America or a job. But, you know, a job is just... The acronym is being just over broke, and we talked a little bit about that. And also, you know, we're not saying not to be, you know, to have to be grateful to have a job, but it's time where you, like you said, you know, reading the Steve Jobs book, you got to look yourself in the mirror. If you're not happy, something needs to change. Yeah. And just alluding into that, one of the biggest things that you know, successful entrepreneurs do is we read. There's a lot of self-development involved. So, you know, just taking that from Latasha, you know, start picking up some books and start learning and where success lies, because success leaves clues.
So you mentioned how you reacted to your friend when she told you that she quit, and you were like, oh, I can never do that, you know, and all that good stuff. So who did you tell first when you quit, and what kind of reaction did you get? Did you have support from your immediate circle?
I had tremendous support from my immediate circle. So I told my friends that I worked with first, because they were there with me when I was just like, what am I doing here? You know, and when I was really uncertain about what the future was going to bring, thinking that I was going to be at a new position in my corporate job. But that turned out not to be the case. And so I let them know, and they were really happy for me. And I had a roommate at the time. I had just signed a lease. this is how certain I was going to be working in corporate America. I had just signed a lease, right? This was like the first month of that lease that I had just signed. And I had a roommate who worked at the company with me that I had to tell that I had just quit my job.
Oh, wow.
And so she told me, she was just like, her boyfriend asked her if she was scared that I wasn't going to be able to pay my part of the rent. She was like, look, Tasha got her money together. I'm going to have trouble paying my rent before she have trouble paying her rent.
Wow.
And that really touched me, you know, that she had that much belief in me. And then I called my mom, right? And my mom was like, well, you know, okay, if that's what you feel like you have to do. But, you know, if you need to come home, you know, feel free. Wow. You can always come home.
That's
so
awesome.
My mom was like, I don't really know what the heck you're doing, but, you know, if you need some support, I got you. Call my dad next. My dad was just like, I'm so happy. He was so happy.
Really? Wow.
And he said something I will never forget. He was just like, I always saw you doing greater things than what you're doing right now.
Wow.
And I was working
amazing.
at a Fortune 50 company, first generation college, first generation corporate, making more money than every other person, not just in my immediate family, but in my extended family. Wow. And he still was just like, I see you doing so much greater than what you're doing right now. And I was just like, wow, that's so powerful.
That is powerful.
And normally, you know, there's a lot of negative, I refer to them as dream killers that come in and try to sway. Well, you had that experience when you actually resigned, when they actually try to reel you back in,
like, oh,
you know, with their ball and chain. Like,
exactly.
This. I won't tell anybody. Like, but I mean, it's just awesome to have that kind of support system, because most people don't have that. And, you know, that probably, and I know, not probably, I know that propelled you to even do even more things, you know, being the first generation, everything. So it's like you became, you know, the poster child of your family and your friends, which is amazing. So that's awesome.
And that helps a lot when you have a support system behind you. A lot of people don't, you know, because of the fears that everybody else has around. Just like your HR person that was like, "What are you talking about? You're crazy," you know. Well, rethink this. Go back to your desk and think about this, because they can't do it or they're afraid to do it. You know, even the comment that you made to your friend by saying, you know, I can never do that, because we put limitations on what we think we're able to do. And so the fact that you had a good support system behind you, I'm sure it even propelled you to dream even bigger than what you possibly even thought was possible, because you had people that supported, you know, what you do. And that means a lot when you have support and accountability and people that's going to, you know, be your personal cheerleaders to say, you know, I know you can do this. I was waiting for you to do this. You're going to be amazing. You know, that means so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, though, you know, the HR person wasn't the only naysayer. So I had 3 levels of bosses. They all were like, they were all on vacation when I decided to quit. And that was by happenstance. That was not planned, because I had no idea that I was about to do it. Mm-hmm. My boss's boss called me from vacation while he was on vacation with his family. It was just like, Tasha, what are you doing? And he tried to make me these promises about, if you stay, you'll be a VP one day. I was like, oh my God.
One day. Wow.
Right. One day in the future. And also as if it was, you know, good enough for me. But I appreciated it, but it just wasn't what I wanted at the time. And, you know, not only that, but my church family, they were, you know how sometimes, you know, they're not going to come right out and say it, but they could throw shade. It was a lot of shade. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, for people of faith, y'all ain't got a whole lot of faith. Mm-hmm. They were just like, you know, why would you leave such a good job? And they would ask me questions like, you know, months later, like, well, do you still think that it was the best decision? If you had to do it over again, would you do it the same way? And my answer always was, I've never been happier. Now, I've had more money, but I've never been happier.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And sometimes it's not about the money. You know, you may not need to leave to make it an astronomical amount of money. It might just be the peace and happiness that, to me, is worth so much more than any money can bring you.
I mean, the freedom to just do whatever you want to do. I mean, you know, I mean, people get so caught up in, well, I make $100,000 a year, but, you know, me having a tax business, I know what kind of money people are actually bringing home. So, you know,
you got to put the people on blast.
Let's keep it real. I'm not going to name any names, which I wouldn't do, but, you know, people get so caught up on how things look on paper, but they are so mentally incarcerated in their positions, in their lives, unhappy, no peace of mind, no freedom, no power to do anything, taking 3-day weekend. A 3-day weekend or 4-day weekend vacations, and
I take 3-week vacations.
Exactly. 3-week vacations.
That's what I'm talking about.
Let's go.
Per quarter. Okay.
Yes,
exactly.
That's what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
So part of it is, having the guts to actually jump in the fire, as you will, and it's not really jumping in the fire. You're jumping into the freedom, but it feels scary at first, and so. You talked a bit about some of the fears that you had, like how I'm going to pay my car note. You just signed a lease with, your roommate that worked at your job, and you're concerned about being able to pay all of these bills. So you have this business, you have this idea that you were working part-time. What were some of the first things that you did to kind of set yourself up so that you can take your business to the next level?
Yeah, so first I'll speak to the fearful part of it, right? Because a lot of people think that you need to get rid of the fear before you take action. I was extremely fearful when I quit, and I didn't care. Like, you can still act and be fearful.
Exactly.
You don't have to allow fear to cripple you. And after I quit, I felt sick. I literally had to leave the building. The room was spinning. I was sick to my stomach. I was just like, what did I just do? Mm-hmm. But I knew that it was the right thing. But when you do something that's against the status quo, when you do something that is completely different from what society would tell you to do, it's going to come with a certain type of feeling because you've been conditioned to do the opposite.
Yes.
And so I literally felt sick. And I cried too. I was crying. I was just like, how am I going to do this? But I think it's natural. Like, we're human beings and we, live within a context, and that context creates meaning and how we experience things. And so I was just like all messed up, but I knew that it was the right decision. Mm-hmm. Right. So I continued to move forward, and thinking about what I did, because I practiced what I preached, I was prepared to quit, right? So I wasn't planning to quit, but I had money in the bank to support myself just because I'm a financial coach.
Right.
So I practiced what I preach. I had an emergency fund of 6 months plus. If I never made a dime for 6 months, I would have been okay. And that's not everybody's story. And when I'm working with clients, a lot of times I'm trying to help them build an emergency fund and a cushion so that they can quit their job, so that they won't have to go back into corporate America. But the thing that I did too, I immediately cut all unnecessary spending. It was like no cable, no eating out, no new clothes. And I did that directly after I left corporate America. And that was over 3 years ago. And I'm just now starting to increase my spending a little bit. I had to live bare minimum with like necessities for 3 years. When I quit, it wasn't like I was planning to quit. I didn't have a chance to prepare for a more minimalist lifestyle. It was just like all of a sudden one day, I really couldn't eat out no more. I really couldn't go travel as much as I wanted to anymore. But I got to live more fully every single day. Nice. And I got to really experience the qualitative difference in life when you do the things that you want to do.
Absolutely. And you touched on
that's amazing, Tasha.
The sacrifice that's required. We could definitely talk about cutting out the cable. There's so many things that we spend money on that we don't need, and we always complain that we don't have money. And it comes a point where you have to cut these things off, and you have to, make that sacrifice for the better of the long haul of what you're trying to do, mm-hmm. or what you're going to do. I don't like to use the word trying.
Yeah. And I would look into my closet after I had quit, and I'd be like, that dress could have been money in the bank. Those shoes could have been money in the bank. I do not need that bag. That could have been money in the bank. And you just get a whole new perspective on the value of the resources that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you do.
And just to touch on what you said about the status quo thing, that's why when you quit your 9 to 5 and you get these kind of responses, people trying to, the crab in a barrel mentality, trying to reel you back in, to be miserable with everybody else. And also the status quo is why the world's wealth is owned by only 1% of the world's population. That status quo has had that much of an impact on the world. And that's why people continue to stay mentally incarcerated in their 9 to 5s.
Yeah, and I think that, you like kind of what you were saying earlier, you gotta make some big decisions, big boy, big girl decisions, and say, okay, if this is what I really want to do, or this is what I'm doing, what could I eliminate from my life right now that's not serving me and my purpose? So if that's, you mentioned getting rid of cable. That's one of the things that he and I did. We were paying like $300 a month on cable, but we watched like 5 of the same channels, and hardly even did that. Like the TV was for the kids. We rarely even watch TV, but you're so in the habit, I gotta have cable. And when he first presented it to me, I was like, no, we're not getting rid of the cable, because what if I want to watch Love and Hip Hop and then I can't? You know what I mean? But that $300 savings made such a big difference, and I couldn't tell you what's on TV right now, but guess what? Every single thing I want to watch can be YouTubed or Netflixed, and it's some of the unnecessary burdens that we put on ourselves to maintain the status quo. We have to drive a really nice car, we gotta have cable, we gotta have this, we gotta have that, and these are just expenses, and they're liabilities.
Yes.
And just to think of, let's use that $300 number for cable. That's $3,600 for the year, right? So could you imagine what you could use an extra $3,600? That could be reinvesting back into yourself, back into your business.
Right.
We would hope that's what you would use it for. So that's just one thing. When you start to lean out and just focus on having the bare necessities, you'll be fine. I mean, and you're definitely an example of that.
I feel a hard truth right now. I feel a hard truth in my spirit, just in terms of like, I don't know who's listening or who's going to listen to this, but to be honest, most people are, I heard Tamisha say you got to put on your, make the big boy, big girl decisions. Most people are not going to be willing to do this. Like, we're so feeble in what we're able to do and what we're able to sacrifice. And you got to be scrappy. Like, that's why I'm able to do this, because I was born in one of the most economically depressed counties, period, where I know what it's like to have no food. I know what it's like to not be able to get new clothes. I know what it's like to not be spoiled and lavished and literally have nothing. But so many people are used to this, we have first world problems, because if you don't have a cell phone, you poor.
Right.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous, right? And not only is a cell phone, but you have to have the latest version. You got to have the iPhone 20, right, in order to feel good about yourself. And if you have like a regular basic phone, something is wrong with you.
Yes.
And you really have to understand that if you are going to be comfortable with living within the context of what the status quo tells you to do, and if you are scared to go against the status quo and have people tell you that you're crazy, you are not going to be able to do this. No. If you flinch at the idea of cutting the cable cord, then I'm going to need you to rethink your life, because this might not be the lifestyle for you.
Exactly.
You got to be willing to put it all on the line. I tell people, between where you are now and where entrepreneurship is, think about a bed of hot coals, right? Are you willing to walk on them and not, trip about it? Because if you're not, then, I want this to be the lifestyle for you, but you have to really build the strength and the mental fortitude to get it done.
No, yeah. I definitely.
That's very powerful, what you said.
Exactly.
And, we preach that a lot, and having to have, experience that, I can speak from that place differently now than I could, before when I was working. But that's really the thing that sets, being successful in your business apart from those who are and those who are not. It's not about your skill set, because anything can be learned. If you're passionate about what you want to do, those are the big decisions that you have to make. Not, spending thousands and thousands of dollars on this training and that training and learning this skill and learning that skill. If you got the passion and the will to succeed, you will. But those are the things that set the people who are really killing it apart from the people who are not. That is exactly it.
And let's be honest, since we definitely like to talk on, truths, and, I definitely acknowledge your transparency, because that's exactly how we feel. But I'll also tell you this, people always complain about, alluding to the iPhone 20, because who knows, it'll be iPhone 100 before we're out of here. People always talk about, I don't have enough time. But they will sit online for 8 hours, 10 hours, sometimes even camp out a day before to get a pair of Jordans, to get a pair, to get the latest iPhone. So for someone to tell me you don't have the time, that's absurd. So we have to stop making excuses. Mm-hmm. We have to stop making justifications. We have to start being grateful, because I know how it feels to have, not to have any heat, not to have any food, and actually those were the times when I actually learned and felt more empowered than I ever have. So let's stop allowing our circumstances to be bigger than us. I mean, it's just the bottom line. I mean, everyone wants to make an excuse, or you said you had 6 months worth. Sometimes we talk to some of the potential quit your 9-to-5ers through our Quit Your 9-to-5 Academy, and you hear things like, well, we've actually heard people say that they were going to wait 3 years until they quit. I mean, 3 years? Do you understand how your life is going to change in 3 years? The opportunities that
they're going to pass you by.
Exactly.
And they come up with this number without really having justification behind it. Like, why 3 years? What are you planning on doing within that 3 years' time? And when they really sit and
that number makes me cringe.
It makes me cringe when somebody says that to me. I'm like, that's a long time. Like, do you know what can happen to your life within 3 years that you're willing to just give to someone else? Like you mentioned from the onset of the conversation, you're giving your life away to someone else that doesn't really value your life. And not that it's a negative, like I can't stand Tamisha, I don't like her. No, it has nothing to do with that. They can genuinely like you as a person, but when you leave, you're going to be replaced by somebody else.
Right.
And so, that's what it all amounts to. Are you comfortable doing that for another 3 years just to be, when you could have done so much more with your business during that time?
And why would you allow yourself to wait 3 years when we have Google University, we have YouTube University? You have all of this. Is an information age. All of the information is laid out to you. Back then when I was younger, we had the encyclopedia. Wow, that was our form of Google University. So I mean, come on now.
The things that we have now at our disposal, there's no reason why somebody couldn't be able to figure out whatever it is they needed to figure out in order to help propel their business to the next level.
And that alluded back to what you said about, we have to learn how to start acting in imperfection. People use the word, I'm a perfectionist, but I used to use that years ago. Well, not years ago. I sometimes I even try to use it now. Everything has to be perfect. All my I's have to be dotted. All my T's have to be crossed in order to take action. That's another major ingredient of procrastination. So if you're trying to be perfect, listeners, whoever you are, you know who you are. Start acting in imperfection. The time is now.
So, Tasha, tell us about your business now and what some of the things that you were able to accomplish for yourself, for your business, since you've made the decision to leave your 9-to-5 3 years ago.
Yeah, so I built my business with a no excuses model. I'm not here for any excuses, not for myself and not for my clients. And I often tell the story that when I was 5 and I decided that education was important, I grew up in a household that could be pretty hectic at times. And sometimes my mom was not able to take me to school. But since I had made a decision that education was important, it was important for me to be in school. And so I would stay up all night, very literally. So, midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. I would wake my mom up at 6 a.m., have her walk me to school at 7 so that I could be there on time. And I did this in preschool, right? Wow. I did this in preschool. And so when we talk about like what's possible or what you can create, I really don't have room or the capacity to accept any excuses. And so in my business, I consider myself as a financial transformation expert because I want to help people improve their financial circumstances. So a lot of what I want to do is alleviate poverty specifically for millennials, because I believe that millennials are right now, an up and coming generation. And I believe that there is so much power there, but not only that, because they are a generation that I can speak to. So I operate as a financial performance coach, right? I deal with a lot of different areas, but the thing that I focus on is what results are you producing and are they allowing you to have a sense of fulfillment in your life? Those are the two things that I focus on, performance and fulfillment. Outside of that, I may care, but I don't care that much, you know. And I tell my clients, you know, when we create a plan, I don't care if your parents come into town. I don't care if your boyfriend come into town. I don't care if something happens. We need to stick to the plan, barring all unforeseen circumstances. So I really work as a financial transformation expert. And I have a lot of different levels because I want to be accessible to as many people as possible. So I have a monthly money box that goes out for $7 a month that comes with 5 different financial forms, worksheets, templates, ebooks, and stuff like that to help you stay focused on your finances from month to month. I have group coaching programs that, you know, run from $44. And then I also have private one-on-one coaching, which I do the most of, and where I spend a lot of time with clients helping them to create the financial results that they want to see in their lives. So that's what I do. I have been doing it since I left corporate America, and I use a lot of the strategy that I learned in corporate America to help my clients be successful. And also, obviously, just the things that I've learned in my day-to-day life, which allow me to relate, connect, and transform with people where they are.
I love that. I love that. And it's so needed. I think that's amazing that you do that because it's so needed, especially for millennials. Everybody needs that. But I feel like, you know, and especially for us. And you know what I'm talking about, because we don't know how to manage our money. We get a hold of some money and it burns a hole right in our hand. We going to buy them shoes. We going to buy this bag. You know, I need a new car. We're adding, again, liabilities, expenses. You know, I need a new car. How many people out there is getting ready to get their tax money and getting ready to buy a new car? You may need a new car, but you don't need a BMW. You know what I mean? And so we don't know how to manage our money because we live in an age where everybody wants that immediate gratification right now. Well, you know, what's going to make me feel good.
And also, people's relationship with money and finances has to change. You know, because subconsciously, what people don't realize is they feel worthless. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, you're working a job that you hate being there. You hate your life. You know, you're dealing with traffic. You're dealing with the train, congestion. You know, you're not eating right. And then on top of that, to validate what you hate doing, you overspend. You get the latest clothes, the latest bag, the latest shoes, the latest car, and you put yourself in more of a financial disaster or potential disaster, which will mentally make you feel that you have to stay at this job in order for sustainability now. Right. So it has an impact. All, you know, the relationship with money has to change. The way you speak about things. You know, you know, because, you know, most people were brought up with the notion of money is the root of all evil. You know, so your relationship with money and finances definitely can dictate on how you live today.
So what advice would you give someone in a similar situation that's, you know, wanting to quit their 9-to-5 and start their business? What advice would you give them at this stage?
So typically the number one advice that I like to give is take action, period. I'm all about the action. But if you're in your job and you want to leave, then my advice would be to have an action plan and stick to it. So, you know, everybody can't do, you know, the cold turkey style. You really got to be willing to put some stuff on the line. I asked myself, Tasha, if you had to be homeless, would you be homeless? And my answer was yes. That's how serious I was. If I needed to be homeless, and I was like, Lord, please don't make me have to be homeless. I do not want to be homeless. But if I had to, I would rather do that than to work a job that I hated. But everybody ain't about that life. And if you are not, then you need to have an action plan that is realistic for you. And I will say, you know, under 12 months for sure. So that, you know, buckle down, do what you need to do, and get out of that job as quickly as possible. Now, we are heading into an entrepreneur economy. More jobs are going to be outsourced in the next 5 years than ever before. So if you don't quit your 9-to-5 job, don't worry, somebody going to quit you. Exactly. You know, and it's not going to be your option. So I recommend having an action plan now so that you don't have to wait for the economy to change. You can be ahead of it.
And just, you know, a segue from that, you know, throughout Quit Your 9-to-5 Academy, you know, we have the Passport to Freedom system. So basically, we teach, you know, individuals. We have an exit strategy plan to get out of your 9-to-5. So, I mean,
So ultimately, my advice is to get that system.
That's what I'm talking about.
Hey, well,
That's my advice. For real.
And not to mention too, we also have a Passport to Freedom event, and that's something definitely that we got to get you on the bill. So I'm
in.
Hey, that was great. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I mean, we can go on and on. I mean, I just love this stuff. No, I mean, I really don't. I mean, all I know is we definitely want to get you on board. I mean, and just when you go back to you started this at the age of 10. We have 2 young boys, and they have the opportunities to sit with us and learn, and so it's just great to know that despite your circumstances,
I see one of them right there.
I can't. You saw me throughout the interview. I'm like, sit down, shut up, close that door, get out of here.
Yeah, so exactly. We have one of them with us right now, and he's he's definitely an entrepreneur now, and we're establishing him on YouTube and Instagram, and he's just amazing. Both of our kids are. So I definitely just want to acknowledge that. I mean, there's just so many people who are old, and don't even know how to manage their finances. They're overspending. They're making excuses. You know that line of, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But hey, listen, we got to break that mold, because it's never too late to be free.
No, it's not.
And we definitely want to create that freedom for people. And finances is one of the major pieces what people use as justifications not to take action. So
Tasha, tell the people where they can find you.
Well, you can find me all across social media. I am a millennial after all. But just go to my website and you can find me from there, startyoungfinancial.com.
Nice.
I have a ton of good stuff. I got about 1 million opt-ins. I have an amazing blog. Anything that you need, I got you over at the website. That is startyoungfinancial.com.
That website is very informative.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff on there, you guys. So please go to startyoungfinancial.com, and you can start getting some of that goodness coming to your inbox immediately, because you need your finances worked out.
And also, I mean, we've done so many podcasts, and we haven't, the theme is pretty much quit your 9 to 5, and we're not plugging our website, which we should, which is it's your fault. I don't know what's going on.
I'll
anyway,
take the blame.
It's
because I'm talking to the people. I'm interested in learning about the people. And I forget about myself.
I mean, these stories are so impactful. I mean, every time we get on and talk. But anyway, our website is www.quityour9to5.com.
No, that's not it.
Sorry, www.quityour9to5academy.com. And also, it's tax time too.
Wait, so is it the number 9 or is mine spelled out?
It's the number 9. So it's quit your number 9 to number 5 academy. Quit your 9 to 5 academy.
And also is this it's tax time as well. And we have an amazing digital tax business. www.taxservices.com. Hey, listen, I got to plug myself too.
Yeah, you do.
We got to and finance is important as well as taxes. People just don't have a clue on what's going on. So, we're definitely
wants you to plug
a one-stop
him too.
shop. And we also want to plug our son. And you can tell everyone what his website is going to be.
He don't have a website yet, but he's sitting here in front of me, and he's like, "Excuse me,
he's flagging us right now.
Plug me too." He's 4 years old. His name is Jaden. You can find him on Instagram at Jaden-TV. See?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have toy demos, science projects.
Love it.
So he wants to. He's going to build and we're holding him accountable. He's also going to build a Iron Man suit by next year. So we're going to hold him accountable for that as well. You open? And Jordan, our other son, he's 2 years old. So he'll be 2 in May. Okay, I mean, come on.
All right.
All
right. This is not about our family. Tasha, thank you so much. That interview was amazing. I think you shared so much about your spiritual journey and how it relates. And I think what I love so much about your interview is that you said what a lot of people are thinking but afraid to say. You know what I mean? And it just touched me in so many different ways, thinking about my experiences. I know that it touched a lot of the listeners out there thinking about their own personal experiences. And it was honest. You know, it was honest and it was truthful, because not everything is, you know, everything that glitters is not gold. So, you know, people need to know what that looks like. But at the end of the day, the one thing that remains the same is your happiness, your freedom, you know, and the excitement and passion that you have about your life, and you're fulfilling your purpose, and nothing can compete with that.
And also, I mean, I love that title, Transformational Finance. I mean, everything I talk about and we talk about is about transformation, about establishing that freedom. So I definitely want to acknowledge you about that, because, I mean, that's what people need, transformation, change. Every time people try to change, they never do. Every time people try, they don't do anything. They don't even try, you know. So I definitely want to acknowledge you for that. I mean, you know, you have an amazing story. We will definitely be gracing the stages with you in the near future. That's right. I'm claiming it. I'm putting you on the bill.
I love it.
And that's just going to be it.
Okay.
Thanks so much for listening to the Quit Your 9 to 5 podcast with your hosts, Tamisha and Damian Duncan. We'll catch you next time.